Okay, how are you, everybody? Good afternoon. We're on page 73, Ayin Gimel today, and it's a very exciting daf because we're going to begin the major Mishnah that lists all 39 melachot, and today is, in fact, 39 days of the Omer, so it's a perfect timing. Okay, but before we get to that Mishnah, which we're going to focus on for the next few days, we are going to continue first talking about two more cases of mitasek, when one does an activity completely not knowing that he's doing something that is a melacha. Not that he doesn't know that it's a melacha, he doesn't even know that he's doing something. He has no intention at all, which is even less than unawares. I'm sorry, it's even less than shogeg. It doesn't, no korban at all. We saw one case yesterday, so this is two more cases. Let's look at the case we saw yesterday. You can all see my screen? Okay, I split it up into units here. The case we saw yesterday was that I had in mind to pick up my a knife, and by mistake I cut something, then that would be patur. Everyone agrees in that case. But if I had in mind to cut a tomato and I thought the tomato was detached, turns out it was actually attached to the ground. So I was mitasek. I had no intention to do any melacha at all. Rava says patur because of that. I had no intention to do a cutting that's isur. Abaye, however, says chayav. Since you were cutting, even though it was a cutting that would have been allowed, still it's within the boundary of the melacha, and therefore chayav hatat. So there, Rava is mekel, Abaye is machmir. And so we'll see two more cases that are quite similar. Itmar, nitkaven lizrok shetayim vezarak arba. I took something in the shut harabim, and I meant to throw it only 2 amot, which is less than the shiur. If I just throw 2 amot, then midaoraita, that's okay. But I didn't recognize my strength, and it turns out it went 4 amot. Throwing something is the same as carrying it. So this is where it's complete mistake. I didn't have in mind, I didn't intend to throw it 4 amot, and I was just throwing it a little bit. Rava amar patur, Abaye amar hayav. Rava amar patur de la chamechaven lezirika de arba. He says I don't have to bring korban because I did not intend to do the melacha, and the melacha is defined as moving something 4 amot. Abaye amar chayav da mechaven lezirika be'alma. Abaye says, well, that's quite similar, right? Just like in the previous case, you were cutting something, you are throwing something, and even though you didn't have in mind to throw 4 amot, you still had in mind to throw somewhat, and so therefore it's similar to the melacha that it was the intention. The intention is similar to the melacha. Good. So that's case number 2. Case number 3 is also similar, a little variation. Kasabur reshut hayachid v'nimset reshut harabim. He thought he was in someone's yard, right? That was private, that had a gate around it, and so he's throwing something around in the yard, which would be permitted in a shut hayachid, even if it's outdoors. But it turns out he looks around and there's no fence here. It's actually the shut harabim. Rava amar patur, v'Abaye amar chayav. Same dividing lines the same way. Rava amar patur, dahalo mechaven lezrika di isura. I had in mind, it's true, to throw, and I'm even throwing far, but I thought it was permitted because of the circumstances, because of the surroundings. Abaye amar chayav, dahamka mechaven lezrika be'alma. Abaye says, yeah, but you were doing the act, that's the same act as would be the melacha, and so therefore you are chayav, even though it's true you made a mistake. Okay, that's why it's called a mistake. That's why you don't get sikila. It's only a korban hatat. So again, we're defining very precisely what the level of unawareness one needs to have. Now we could ask a question: why do we need all these 3 cases? Right? They're all basically the same. So Talmud asks that usricha. I need all 3. Di ashme'inan kamaita. Bahu kamarava daha la mechaven lechaticha di isura. Avanit kaden lizrok shetayim vezarak arba. Darba belot tarte lo mizrakale. If I had only the first case, the one that we saw yesterday with cutting the tomato, I would say that Rava, who says patur, you don't have to bring korban, he would only say it in that case because I had no intention to do any cutting that is prohibited at all. I was just cutting a loose tomato, I thought. But here, where I do intend to throw, and throwing kind of in by definition, in its essence, is something that could be prohibited. It is prohibited. In other words, the throwing is the same act of throwing, whether it's 2 or 4, whereas cutting something that's detached is fundamentally different than cutting something that's attached. It's like it's a different name. So I would say that perhaps he's only says it's permitted. He only thinks it's permitted in that case where it's like it's a fundamentally different act. But here it's fundamentally the same act. Maybe he would agree with Abaye and say that this one is asur. That's why I have to teach this case as well. Even in this case where the throwing is really the same, he still says it's allowed. And if I only had the second case, I would say he only permits, he only says you don't have to bring a korban in this case because I have intention only to throw 2, not to throw 4. That he had intention to throw 4. So in this case, I have intention to throw 4, which is an act that could be asur if it was in the Reshut Harabim. But he thought it was Reshut HaYachid. So in the last case, he's doing something that itself is an act that could be asur, and it's only mutad if it's in the surroundings of Reshut HaYachid, but turns out it's the surroundings of Reshut Harabim. So in this case, it's a little bit more, it's a little bit closer to the actual act that would be prohibited. And so in this case, it might look more like a shogeg. No, even here, Rava would say it's completely permitted. Okay. All right, so that's that. I mean, the truth is that the third case here looks a bit like the first case because he's, if you're cutting something that's a tomato that's not connected to the ground and turns out it is connected, it's like the surroundings are dependent on it. And in this case, you're throwing something for it. It is fundamentally different if it's in the Reshut HaYachid or the Reshut Harabim. But I think that they're defining the melacha differently. That chopping, something on a cutting board is fundamentally different than reaping, harvesting a tomato, and so that makes that definition makes a difference. Okay, very good. So we finished with those things that are unaware. And now we have a freebie. We learned this sugya twice already, and this is a third repetition. So if you didn't get it the first 2 times, now we have a chazaka. Now you remember it. Tenan avot melachot 40 chaser achat. We learned in the Mishnah. Well, it's the Mishnah. It's about to come up. That there's 39 melachot. Behavinan ba. And when we learned that Mishnah, we analyzed it and we said, Minyanad lameli, why do you have to bother telling me the number 39? Just list them. Why is it important to know how many they are? Amar Rabbi Yochanan, shemasan kulam behelen echad, chayav al kol achat ve'achat. If I forgot about all of them, right, and I did all 39 on a Shabbat. I completely forgot the laws of Shabbat. I have to bring a korban on each and every one of them. That's why it says there are 39, because it's telling you there could be a case where you would have to bring 39 different hatat offerings over one Shabbat. That's why it says the number. Okay, fine. So that's what we said over there. Now let's apply it to this case. That's why we repeated it 3 times. Every time we quote it, we're applying it to a discussion that just came about. Bishlama le'abaye damar ki hay gavna hayav mashkachat la diada di isura Shabbat ve'yada le'isur melachot ve'kata'a be'shi'urin. I understand this according to Abaye, who was the one machmir here. How could you have a case where you made a mistake in all 39 melachot? Well, it could be. I know it today is Shabbat. I know all the melachot, but I made a mistake in the amount. I thought that only throwing 10 amot is not allowed. So I threw 4 amot thinking that was okay. Oh, it turns out that's not okay, right? And you'll see for each one of the melachot, there's a minimum amount that is required. So I got messed up with my amounts. I got the wrong chart, wrong Kazayit chart. I photocopied it and it shrunk, so I didn't know. So right, that's so it could be I could find a case where I could make a mistake in all 39 melachot in that way. However, because you bring a korban in all the cases. But Rava says even if I get the shiur wrong, if I meant to do 4 and I do only 2, if I meant to do 2 and then I do 4, patur. He says I don't bring korban in any case. So how could I have a case where I have to bring 39 korbanot? How could I have a case where I bring so many when I know it's Shabbat and I forgot all the melachot? Well, let's see. Hanicha isabad la kerebi Yochanan damar kevan sheshagag bekaret afapi shehezid belav mashkachat le la diada la leshabbat belav. Well, I can have a case if I follow the opinion of Rabbi Yochanan that we saw way above. Rabbi Yochanan says, if I knew that this is prohibited, lighting of that carrying is prohibited, but I didn't know the punishment was karet. I thought it was a simple lav, but it didn't come with a punishment of karet. According to Rabbi Yochanan, that's also defined as shogeg. Even knowing it's not allowed, but not knowing the punishment is also defined as shogeg. So then I could easily have a case. I know all the 39 melachot, I know them by heart, right? But I don't know the punishments. I didn't get up to that. And I do all of them, right? Knowing that I know I'm violating, but I didn't know what the punishment is. So then I have to bring 39. So that's, I could have a case where I know it's Shabbat and forget and still have to bring 39 melachot. But if I follow the opinion, now if I follow the opinion of Rava, and I'm following the opinion of Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish, and he says that the only time you bring a korban is when I don't know that the punishment, and I don't even know the isur at all. I forgot all the melachot of Shabbat. Well, if I forgot all the melachot, then how could I have a case where I violated all of them b'shogeg? And in one sense, do I even know Shabbat? The Adela Shabbat b'mai, because I have to know it's Shabbat. If I don't even know it's Shabbat, then that's only one, right? Then that's Zedon Shabbat. That's only one for all 39 if I don't know it's Shabbat. So I have to have some sense I know it's Shabbat. So the answer is, like before, the Adala b'tchumin, v'alibad Rabbi Akiva. I do know that I can't go outside the city for 2,000 amot, and I consider that deoraita according to Rabbi Akiva. So therefore, I do know that there's one prohibition on Shabbat. So I know it's Shabbat, but I forgot all the other melachot, and I do all of them. Then that would be called shogeg, and I can find a case even according to the Shakish, even according to Rava. Okay. So we finished that in the first Mishnah, and now we go to the second Mishnah of the Perek. Finally, Avot Melachot Arba'im Chaser Achat, 40 minus 1, and they are split into 4 categories. It's the first category is the manufacturing of food, Hazoreya, all agriculture and making food. Hazoreya, Hachoresh, Kotzer, Me'amer, Hadash, Hazorev, Habored, Hatochen, Meraked, Vehalash, Vehaofeh. Luckily, we're not farmers, but we have pictures of these. Zoreya is planting the seed and plowing, and then harvesting, cutting, gathering together is me'amer. Dash is stepping on it, usually with a wooden board, the animal that would pull it around, and that would separate the kernel of the wheat from the chaff. And then I throw it up to the wind, and the chaff blows away and leaves only the kernels. That's zoreh. And bored is then I take out the bad pieces that are left, and then tochen, I grind it, and finally I sift the flour to get the fine flour out, and then lash is kneading and baking. So this whole process is, each and one of these things is not permitted on Shabbat. Okay, category number 2 is the creation of clothing. Hagozez et hatzemer. Shearing, melabenod, and washing it, menafpetzo, combing it out, hasoba'o, v'hatoveh, v'hamesech, v'haoseh shete betenirin, v'haorek shenei chotin, v'poseh shenei chotin, hakosher, hamatir, hatofeh shete tefirot, hakoreh al menat litpor shete tefirot. Okay, the pictures are going to help here. So shearing and then washing it out to make it nice and white, and taking out the knots. and dyeing and spinning it into a thread. And mesech is setting up the woof of the loom, and then shnei bate nirin. Nirin is these loops in which I would put the warp, and then as these go up and down, and the other strand goes through, that would be weaving. And sometimes you have to undo a weave if it comes out uneven, and so you have to take out a weave. So that's also one of them. And tying a knot and untying a knot. Sewing, similar to weaving, but sewing is with a needle. When you already made a piece of cloth and then you're sewing it together, or you're cutting it in order to re-sew it. That's all of them. Okay, so that's all the things that are involved in creating clothing. And the third one has to do with creating parchment and writing. Hasad sebi, you hunt a deer, shochato, and you slaughter it. Mafshito, take off its skin. Molcho, and you salt it or start preparing the skin. Me'abedet oro, tanning. Memachako, you make it smooth from the hairs that are on it. Mechatechon, you cut it into pieces. I mean, you can use it to make shoes and things, but here you're using it to write. You write two letters. Why two letters? Because one letter is not a word, it's just a shape. And Hebrew, there's no one-letter word, not like in English. So it has to be at least a word that's somewhat understandable, or some symbolically significant. Or if you erase, and because that's part of the writing process, is also erasing mistakes. Okay, a lot of people separate this and say, this is the preparation of an animal, like to eat, and then there's another one writing, but actually this is all together, because you see it has to do with tanning. It's the leather process. Yeah. Okay, and then that's the third category. The fourth category is building. Haboneh v'asoter, breaking down. Well, the demolition is part of building process. Mechaber mav'ir, extinguishing and lighting a fire, which is also used in manufacturing. Makev patish is completing the last blow to create a utensil. So those are all manufacturing items. And then finally, carrying from one domain to another. It doesn't fit into any of the four processes, but it's its own thing. I think it belongs here nicely, because usually after you gather your fruit, your grain, or you create something, you carry it out to the market to sell. That's like the last step. So I think it is actually in chronological order, and carrying in Tanakh is usually carrying to the marketplace to sell. And so these are Eluhen, Elu Avot Melachot Arba'im Chaser Achat. Okay, before we start the Gemara, a couple of interesting things about this list. I mean, where does this list actually come from? If you notice, some of these things are quite similar, and the Talmud is going to ask about this. When you take dash and zoreh and borer, I mean, these all are separating, right, the good and the bad. There's like three different ways of saying the same thing. Why do we need all three? And these, in other words, if they're conceptual categories, Talmud's going to take them as conceptual categories and have to figure out like why we have these doublings and some things that should be here that aren't. But in fact, Professor Yitzchak Gilat wrote an important article about this, and showed that actually it comes from, I would like to show you this in a second. Yeah, here. That there must have been already lists that were around of this is how you do, this is how you bake, right? And gives all the steps of things. And we have such a list. In fact, in the Mishnah, where Ben Zoma says, when he saw a big population up on Har HaBayit, he saw lots of people, and he would take notice of it and say, Baruch mi shebara et elu leshamesheni. This is blessed God that created all these people here to serve me. He wasn't conceited. He was just remarking about the division of labor and how wonderful it works. Kamei Aga Adam Rishon. Adam Rishon was only one person in the world. He couldn't have one bite of food until he went and planted and plowed and cut and did. He had to do all these things. And finally, after months and months of work, he can go and eat a bite, right? But me, I just wake up in the morning and I just go out and there's a baker there. All these people, one guy's a farmer, one guy's a baker, and all this is done for me. So I could just go out upon my day, and for a small fee, I can eat the bread. And look at the Adam Rishon. If he wanted to get dressed in the morning, he had to go and shear the sheep and spin and make the loom and everything. I just wake up in the morning and I find everything all there and ready for me. So how wonderful is division of labor? Okay, so you see that the lists here are almost exactly the same as the list in the Mishnah. So what it seems is that the Mishnah is putting together various known lists of labors as examples of creative work that is prohibited on Shabbat. Okay, this will become important because we'll see the Talmud is going to compare these to work activity that was done in the Mishkan, but there's no reason at the outset to assume that this derives from the objects in the Mishkan, right? That's a later comparison. Okay, one more point about the Mishnah and its structure is we started off with Kelal Gadol, all right, and then we list the 39 Melachot, and then we say Od Kelal Acher Amiru. If you remember a few dapim ago, we compared this to the other Mishnayot where it says Kelal Gadol, and immediately it says Od Kelal Acher. We saw in at least one other place, maybe two other places. And so Professor Gilat says the original Mishnah here, the earliest layer, goes from the first Mishnah all the way to the third Mishnah, skips the second one. The second Mishnah is a secondary layer. And you can prove it because if you look in the statements of the Tanaim, in the Tosefta, and both quoted in the Talmud, you see that not all the Tanaim agreed with this list. This is a list that Rabbi Yehuda Nasi put together and put in, right? This was his list. Other Tanaim broke the categories down differently, which makes important differences in the categorization. And so if you read it without, it's Kelal, and then Od Kelal Gadol, and then Od Kelal. And this is secondary layer, and that's important to remember because not all the Tanaim, in other words, had this right already in their Mishnah, in their pre-Mishnah. And so that, keeping that in mind, will explain a lot of things that we will see in the Talmud.
So the Gemara had that in the same place when they were commenting on it?
Yes, the Gemara has it. By the time of the Gemara, it's already there, right? But with you can from the Mishnah times already there are layers, and if we would spend time studying just the Tosefta, we would see that would become very clear. Okay, but the Gemara is going to quote a lot of times the Tosefta, and so we'll see how that plays in. Very good. Okay, so that's the Mishnah. Now, Gemara says, Mina minyana lamali. Why do we need to count 39? I can count it myself, or why do I need to count it at all? Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Shim asan kulam behalem echad, hayav al kol achat ve'achad. That's it. Okay, so I need it's counting them in order to teach me that if I do all of them in one lapse of knowledge, I have to bring 39 different melachot. Okay, this is the original place where we quoted already 3 times beforehand, right? Mm-hmm. The fact that Talmud beforehand quoted this here, it shows you Talmud's not written in order from beginning to end, but this is an early layer. This is Rabbi Yochanan, the first generation, Amora, and then the other, this is already there, and the later writers of the editors of the Talmud already knew it and quoted it from here. Okay, and now we're going to go phrase by phrase in the Mishnah. Hazoreya v'hachoresh, someone who seeds or plows. Now, okay, michdi charebe beresha. Hold it. Usually, if anybody knows their farming, first you plow the field to get the ground soft, and then you plant. Why would it have planting first and then plowing? It should say plowing first and then seeding. Tana beres Yisrael ka'ed, Zar'ai beresha, V'adar karbe. Oh, it must, the Tana lives in Eretz Yisrael. Israel has hard land, and because it's so hard, if you plow first and then put the seed still will not get into the ground. So you need to seed and plow afterwards to mix it in, and therefore that's just simply the reality. So the order represents the reality in Eretz Yisrael. Okay, good. Tana. What we're going to see here is, unlike beforehand when we had long, complex sugyot going back and forth, the sugyot that are going to follow are really short, staccato. It's going to quote a Tana. This is a Tosefta. Anything in bold is a Tanaitic source. Usually a Tosefta here. It's going to quote a Tosefta, a couple of comments by Moraim, and move on to the next, right? And this represents an early stage of Talmud, which is short commentaries on each phrase of the Gemara. Later, Talmud is much more expansive, goes on tangents, and builds long arguments. So this is a good example of early Talmud. Tana, Baraita says, Hazoreya v'hazomer v'hanoteya v'hamabrich v'hamarkib kulan melacha achat hen. So the planting and pruning, cutting off vines, and vanoteya is putting a seedling into the ground. Mabrich is I'll show you a picture. These are all the things that they did. Patish, and this is walking. Okay, noteya is putting a whole plant in the ground. This is omer. Mavrich is as follows: you take a branch and you bend it down into the ground, and then it starts growing on its own, and then you cut it, and so that way you can multiply that vine. Markib is grafting one branch onto another. Okay, these are all similar to planting, even though it's not really planting. You're helping something to grow. So these are all within the same category. Remember, which means this has practical application. Let's say I do all these things on Shabbat, right? How many korbanot would I bring?
One.
Just one, right? Because they're all in the same category. Good. What is this teaching us? So that's what the Talmud says, that the Baraita is telling us that you bring only one korban for all of these. Very good. Amar Rabbi Aha. This is a difficult phrase here. Amar Rabbi Chaya bar Asher. Amar, printed editions have Rabbi Ameh, but manuscript has Rav. Zomer Chayav Mishum Noteya. That pruning is the same as you are liable as planting, which is not so intuitive, because pruning just means cutting off a branch. Why would that be the same as planting? Well, because when you prune, you help it grow more. So they're both they have in common, it's helping something to grow. Okay, so those are one category. And then he says, Hanoteya v'hamavrich v'hamarkib chayav mishum zoreya. Planting and grafting and bending down the root to grow on its own are all part of planting. Okay, now this is all stated as one statement here, and then it's a little bit circular, because he says this is chayav mishum noteya, and noteya itself is chayav mishum zoreya. So then it's like, what is he saying? That all these three are zoreya, and and zomed is a secondary thing from noteya, right? What's the point? In the Talmud Yerushalmi, these are two separate statements, the first one and the second one, which makes it make a little bit more sense. Also, there is one manuscript. This is the one in the Vatican that I showed you yesterday, where it says, here it says Amar Rabbi Abba, Amar Rabbi Chaya, Bar Asher Amar Rav. You see, it says Rav here, not Rabbi Ameh. Zomer Chayav Mishum Noteya. That's the first statement. And Hamavrich v'Hamarkib Chayav Mishum Zoreya. It doesn't have the word Hanoteya again, although there is something that was written on the side that's a little hard to make out. But it didn't. It looks like the original did not have that word Hanoteya. So if you go by that manuscript, I think that it makes more sense. Okay, but the Talmud anyway asks, mishum zore'ain, mishum noteya lo? Are you saying that these two things, mavrich and markib, grafting and bending down, are they only chayav because of noteya, as planting, because of planting a seedling, and not as seeding? So it's ema af mishum zoreya, also because of seeding. So so it's fundamentally they all boil down to being a part of being to seeding. Okay. Amar of Kana zomer v'tzarich le'atzim chayav shetayim. This is very interesting. If you prune a vine and you're pruning because you want the things that you're cutting off, you want to use them for firewood or whatever, then chayav shetayim, achad mishum koser v'achad mishum noteya. Achad mishum koser because you are cutting it off, and also because you're cutting it off and you want the item, but also noteya because you're helping it to grow. So you can violate two categories with one action. Two more examples of that. Amar Rav Yosef, Haiman de katal aspasta chayav shetayim, achad mishum koser v'achad mishum noteya. Aspasta is something that grows very, very often, and so you cut it because you want it. It's good as food, and also it helps it grow more. So also chayav shetayim. Amar Abaye, Haiman de kanib silka chayav shetayim, achad mishum koser v'achad mishum zoreya. If you cut beets, also you're obligated to two. One, because you are cutting and you want them, and also because you are helping it to grow, and that's called zoreya. Okay, very good. I don't know why we have all three. I guess maybe they said each statement independently, or for some reason they're applying it to different types of cases. Okay, so we finished with that one, and now we go to choresh, plowing. So we quote from the Mishnah, plowing, and then we quote a baraita. HaChoresh v'hachofer v'hachoretz kulan melacha achat hen. It says that plowing and digging a hole and making a furrow are all one melacha. They're all the same thing. Amar Rav Sheshet, comments on that. Hayta lo gabshushit v'natala babayit chayav mishum boneh basadeh chayav mishum choresh. If I had a mound of dirt and I move it away, and I take it away. If the mound of dirt was in the house and I take it away, that's building, right? That's part of building. I'm moving away dirt to create space in my home. That's building. But if the mound of dirt was in the field and I take it away, then that is plowing, right? I'm overturning the dirt. That's a type of way of plowing. So this very same action could be classified under two different categories depending on where it is. Amar Rava, hayta lo guma utimama babayit mishum boneh basadeh mishum choresh. Rava has another version of this. If I have a hole in the house and I fill it up, well, in my house, filling up a hole, that would be building, right? I'm straightening out the floor, I'm fixing it. But if it's in the field, then that's choresh, moving around the dirt, and so that is plowing. Amar Rabbi Abba, hachofet guma b'Shabbat, v'en tzarich ela la'afara patur aleha. This is an important principle. I dig a hole in the field on Shabbat. So that looks like that would be chayav because of plowing. But the reason I'm doing it isn't because I want the hole, but rather because I want the dirt. I need the dirt. I have to go, I don't know, put out a fire or something. And so if I need the dirt, then patur, because I'm not, although it's the same action, I'm not doing the action for the purpose, for the goal that is usually intended in the melacha, but rather for a side benefit. So so therefore patur. Afilu Rabbi Yehuda damar melacha she'ena sricha legufa chayav aleh hanemile mitachen hay mekalkelhu. And even in Rabbi Yehuda, and this is another important principle, melacha she'ena sricha legufa. Rabbi Yehuda says that an action that is not intended for its main purpose, legufa, for itself. So here I'm digging not because I want the hole. And he, in general, would say still chayav, even though you don't want that. But that's only if you're doing something constructive. But here I'm doing something destructive. Making a hole is destructive. So even he would agree that in this case, that is patur. Okay, next malacha is kotzer. Tana hakoser v'boser hagoder v'mesik v'haoreh. Kolan melacha achat. These are all different verbs that are used for cutting down, harvesting. Kotzer is for grain, kotzer is for grapes, koder is for dates, and mesik is olives, ore is for figs. This is like, the Eskimos have 50 words for snow, right? So if you're a farmer, then these words are important. We just say cutting. Amara papa. Okay, these are all the same, obviously. Hayman deshada pisa ledikla ve'atar tamare chayav shetayim. Someone takes a clump of dirt and throws it at a palm tree, and some dates fall down. That violates two things. Achat mishum tolesh ve'achat mishum mefarek. Tolesh, that he is separating the dates from the tree, and as he's doing that, the dates themselves separate from the cluster. So that's mifarek, is taking apart something that was together. And so because in that one action, those two things happen, he has to bring two korbanot if he does that b'shogeg. Rav Asher disagrees, Ba'amad, and derech tilisha bechach, and derech pirika bechach. This is not the way that you usually undo things, right? This is usually you climb up and you do that. You're doing it here in a shinui, in a different way. And so any malacha you do in a different way is patur, and therefore he disagrees and says you would not be liable in those cases. Me'amer. Me'amer is bundling together, and so he says someone that goes to a salt pool and gathers salt. That's how they get salt. They would fill up a pool with salt water and close it off, wait till it evaporates, and then the salt would be left there. And someone who goes and gathers salt is also chayav b'shum me'amer. So me'amer is not just binding wheat together; it's a conceptual category, and collecting anything would be a violation. This is actually good because we learned this in part from the man, right? We just fell and is there, but collecting something that's spread out is actually the main source of it. Abaye amar en aimur ela begidule karka. Abaye disagrees and says no, it has to grow from the ground. Only things that grow from the ground it can be bundled together. Are you asur? If you gather other things like salt that doesn't grow from the ground, that is not included. Okay, and the last item for today is dash, a threshing. Hatana, hadash, v'minapetz, v'minafet, kulan, melacha, achat hen. Okay, again, different types of separating. Hazoreh, right, is hazoreh, v'haborer, v'hatochen, v'miraked. Hainu zoreh, hainu borer, hainu miraked. This is a question I mentioned before. Aren't these all the same? These four. If you throw it up, winnowing and borer and taking out the bad pieces and grinding and sifting after you grind, right? These are all the same thing. You're all separating something you want from something you don't want. So why do you have to mention it 4 times? So Rabbi Yanava say that anything that was done in the preparation of building of the Mishkan, even if they're similar, we're going to count it. So in other words, they're saying this list is not strictly conceptually different items, but giving the whole list of everything that was done in the Mishkan, even if they're similar. Okay. Well, in that case, why don't you include also smashing? Because they did smashing when they did the ketoret. Amar Abaye, sheken ani ochel pito belo ketisha. No, you don't have to, because a poor person would eat bread even though the grain was not smashed. He has coarse bread, and so since you can get away without doing it, it's not an absolutely necessary part of the bread making process, and so that's why the Tana can skip it. Rava Amar Hamane Rebihi Tamar Avot Melachot Arbim Chaser Achat. So Rava raises a different problem. He says, no, you couldn't possibly bring kotesh, because if you add that, then you can have 40. And the Mishnah, which is composed by the Yehuda Nasi, says 39. But we could solve that. No, well, we could take out one of these. These four are all synonymous anyway. So how about take out one of those, and then we could put kotesh in. So really, that's not, the number itself is not a problem. We can always find a way to get 39 by combining some other two. Instead, it's clear that Abaye's answer is the correct one because crushing is not an absolutely necessary part of the baking process. Therefore, it did not have to be named in the Mishnah, but in fact, it would also be a melacha. Baruch Adonai Olam, Amen ve'amen.